Welcome to Metro's Help Desk Introduction to your Microsoft Surface and Windows 8.1. In this session, we're going to give you a quick overview about the hardware, and then in following sessions, you'll get a chance to learn more about how to work with Windows 8.1 and also how to interact with some of the other tools that are coming with your new Surface. Along the way, we're going to be able to provide you links to our handouts that we have that you'll be able to reference. So everything that we covered today, you're going to be able to find in your Surface Pro and Windows 8 handout so that you don't have to worry about taking notes as you go along here. So with that, let's get started and talk about what's new with your Microsoft Surface Pro and the Windows 8.1. What we're giving you is a brand new way of working with your computing. It is sort of a combination of working with a tablet and with a computer all smashed into one. It is a new way to be able to take your work with you and be able to adapt to the environment that you're in, whether you're standing up out in the field or sitting at a meeting or back at your desk and docking this and working with your keyboard and your mouse. You have lots of flexibility to adapt the computing to match what you're doing in your day-to-day business life here at Metro. So with that, let's get started and meet your new Surface Pro. It is a device that sort of has a split personality. What I mean by a split personality is that you can set it up and use it just like you would with a laptop computer with the keyboard and a touch pad to be able to work with the mouse. But you also are able to, if you so desire, take the keyboard off, flip it into a tablet and work like an Android tablet or a Apple iPad, but the big difference being that this is not a tablet, but it's a full-blown PC, able to run all the applications, your Word, your Excel, your Outlook, and other specialized tools that you might run on your Windows computer that you have today. The flexibility of being both a tablet or going back, having it as a PC, or if you so desire, just pick it up and off you go. So you have those capabilities. We're going to talk about this pieces and some of the extra components that go with the tablet. But before I go too far, I do need to point out that the Surface has glass right up to the edge. And what that means is that this can be subject to cracking if you were to drop this onto a cement floor. It does not do well with dropping. But you'll also see that we have not put any kind of case on your phones. You may have decided to put a phone with a case, but we're electing not to do that with our Surfaces. And the reason being is that you have the ability to pick up and go. It's much more portable without a protective case. And the whole point was to have the Surface travel with you as you're out and about. So what we've done instead of buying a protective case is that we have put insurance on these. And so within the first 2 years, we can get a full replacement if this does accidentally get dropped for the first 2 times. So if by chance something happens, and things do happen, bring it back to the help desk, we'll get it exchanged and get you up and running. As we go farther in some of our future session, we are going to talk about the importance of having your data in a place that will synchronize so that you are not stranded. If you lose your Surface, your data is going to be on the Surface and also duplicated up on the Metro network. So let's move on and see what else is on here. If we take a look, and I'm going to open this up and take the keyboard off for a moment, we're going to actually start to walk around the edges of your Surface to discover the different types of ports and see how it is very much like your PC, except much more compact. If we start on the left side of your screen, you're going to find on the far left side that there is a rocker switch that's going to control the volume. Now, once we get into Windows, you can change the volume within the operating system, but you can also do it physically on the outside by just doing the up and down. You'll also see that we have at the very top a place to plug in your headphones, so you have the ability to turn the speakers off and listen through headphones and still adjust the volume. With that said, built into the Surface, hiding on the edges are really a nice pair of stereo speakers, and so it does nicely without the headphones. You just want to make sure that you don't disturb your neighbors as you might be playing sounds a little too loud. If we continue on from the left side all the way up, at the very, very top, we just have a single button at the top portion of our Surface, and as this button, that's the power on and off. It actually does more than just powering it. You can put the Surface to sleep, and wake it up. And as we go through some of our future sessions, we're going to find how we can use this to wake the system up and keep going. If we look on the far side, and this is now, if you're looking at on the right side of your screen, you're going to find that we have several different ports. We actually have a USB port, and because this is a Windows PC, the USB port is actually going to work with almost any device that you hook up with any other PC, be it via a USB storage device or an external mouse, or if you have some specialized equipment, you can plug it in, and as long as there's drivers with your Windows 8.1, you're ready to go. At the very top, we have a small little piece just above the USB, and this smaller port is actually used for connecting external monitors. And there's a special adapters that you can pick up from the help desk that actually you need to order if you find that you do presentations with projectors. You'll be able to plug this in and connect to a VGA connector, or you'll also be able to connect up with other types of HDMI flat screen TVs or specialized projectors. So it does have the ability to do a display off besides just what you have on your main screen here. With that said, in future sessions, we'll talk about how you get this connected to your desktop and being able to display there. The last piece that we have here is a connector for your power supply. Now, when you, or your power charger, when it's on your desk and docked, it's charging at all times, but you also are given with your Surface a remote or a portable powering station that you're able to take with you. And you're going to find that on the end that there is a cable that just slips in and is actually magnetically connected. You can do that, and it plugs in nicely. It's reversed, so it doesn't matter which way you go. You can drop it in either fashion. So it works in both fashions. It's important though to note that when it's plugged in and powered on, and we're not powered in at the moment, you will though see this light up to let you know that you're actually charging the device. If we continue on around the back side here, we're going to find that we actually have three, what looks like two holes and a little eye. And this is going to be the external backside camera, the camera here, and then a built-in microphone, and also a privacy light that will let you know that when it's on, the camera's on, that it's recording. You'll see the red light on there. And to match that, on the front side, we have the same thing, a camera on the front, also a privacy light, and then the microphone. The camera on the front side of your Surface is not quite as high resolution as the one on the back, much like the way that your phones are set up. With that, we also then have the kickstand, because it's more than just a tablet. You are going to want to work with it, and what we're going to see is that on the edges here, there's a little indentation that you can put your fingers in, hold it up, and then dock it, or I should say, situate it on your table. And the nice thing about this kickstand is that it is actually very flexible so that you can move it farther back and back and back and back. In fact, all the way back so that you can drop it down. And now if you're looking from above, you can actually put this on a low table and work in this fashion. Or if by chance you happen to be at a table that's very high, like a filing cabinet, you can have the kickstand up high and be able to adjust it to match whichever view you're working with. This is a high quality screen. And what that means is that with the high quality screen, you will have a glare. And so to work with that glare, you may need to adjust this to match the angle of light to get the optimum viewing. So you have lots of flexibility with the built-in kickstand. And once again, down and working with the keyboard. You can see the keyboard comes off. It's all magnetic driven. If I drop it and listen, you can listen carefully, it just sort of snaps into place. And now you've got the keyboard on, or you can take it off by just pulling it off. Either way works. And click, and once you do, it snaps. If I hold it, there we go, and clicks right back in at that point. The keyboard, and one little trick is that as we move into tablet mode, we're going to find that while the keyboard in this mode is going to be able to interact, if I flip it all the way around, because you can hold it in this fashion, the keyboard no longer is active. It just knows that it's in sort of a dock station. So you don't accidentally start to enter words or characters when you're holding in this tablet fashion. Let's talk a bit more about charging. Before we go to charging, let's finish up with the keyboard. We saw that the keyboard snaps on. It actually works with two types of modes. What I mean by that is that we have it flat on the table and we may like working in that fashion, that portion, or we may find that we really want to actually work at an angle. If I pull it up just a little bit, you can see it actually connects here. And now I'm typing at an angle depending on what's most comfortable with me. So you can either have it at an angle or you can just pull it out a little bit and rest it flat on the table, and it's your choice of how you want to work with the system here. So with that, let's wrap up talking about charging your Surface. The Surface itself will last about 3 to 5 hours depending on how you're using it, and if you turn the backlight, you may even get more like 6 or 7 hours. But it depends on what you're doing with it. If it's 6 or 7, heads down, on, always working, you're going to get closer probably to 5 hours. But if you're in a meeting all day long and you're working away for a while in your meeting and then you're paying attention, if you just close the screen, when you close the screen, the screen power goes off, it goes into sleep mode, and you conserve power. So between this on and off working, you could very easily get through a whole day without having to charge. Fortunately, the charging device is not that huge, so it does give you the ability to pack this away and take with you if you plan to be away from your desk for an extended period of time. With that, we're going to come back in the next session and start to take a look at what's involved on logging into your Surface, and then how to start working with Windows 8.1. Thanks a lot, and hang in there. We'll be back for our next session. Welcome back to learning about your Microsoft Surface Pro and Windows 8.1. In this next segment, we're going to learn a little more about the operating system and working with the touchscreen on your new Surface. So let's get started. Let's see how you're going to start the system up and get logged onto the network. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up into a laptop mode. I'm going to set it here, and to wake it up, I have several choices. I can, for the most part, either hit the space bar and that will wake it up, or I could tap the very top button and wake it up there. Just a tap will wake it up. Either fashion will get it to come back to life. If it has gone completely powered down state, it may take 5 to 15 seconds to come back to life. But if you've recently used it, it should pop right back up in just a few seconds here. Once I get there, I can then go ahead and log in. I'm going to go ahead and power this off, tap it, power it back on. I get sort of a screen that's going to give me a chance to log in. And I could do my old-fashioned Control-Alt-Delete, and that would get me a logon screen. But I can also, let's power it off, power it back on again. I'm going to go ahead and hit the space bar. That too gives me a logon screen. Or let's show you a third way. And this way, instead of using the keyboard, I'm going to find that I can touch my screen because it is a touch-enabled screen. Just drag it up and I get that logon screen. So I have multiple choices of how to get this connected. And the reason you have multiple choices is that there may be some times when you're out in the field and you don't have the keyboard on a desk and you want to be able to log in by just touching it. You do that just by clicking on the screen and dragging upwards. It's going to ask me for a password. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over so you can't see my password, just for the secrecy, and log in to this machine and back here, hit the enter. Now I've successfully logged into my system here. And when I log into my system, we're about to move into talking about the different types of systems and how Windows 8.1 is working differently than your Windows 7. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start. When we're working with the new Windows 8.1, we have a new opening menu. The opening menu, unlike Windows 7 that used to work just on the left side of the screen, it now fills your whole screen. In addition to filling a whole screen, we're going to see that we have many different icons to choose from. It's actually a much larger set of way of launching programs that are actually touch enabled, so I can click and tap to launch them, although I can still use my keyboard and bring things up, but I have the ability of interacting in a different fashion. And so they've opened up the menu, start menu, so that you have more things to interact with. We're going to start talking about not just interacting with the touch screen, but also learning about a new concept of two different types of applications and programs that works with your Microsoft Surface and Windows 8.1. Because it's a touch-enabled device, much like a tablet, Microsoft has introduced this concept of apps versus programs. An app is very much what you might find on your phone, like a weather app or a news app. We're going to find that we have the same thing. They're simple programs that do just one thing and one thing very well. I'm going to go ahead and launch in here the weather app. So I'm going to see the news and weather, and when I tap that, off it goes, and it's going to bring up what the local weather is because it has a built-in GPS. And if you tell it to go ahead and use your location, it will know where you're at and show you the weather. That's all this app does, is it just shows the weather. But it does a few more things. I'm able to click and drag and be able to see a little more details. It's actually not a bad little weather app that will give you some historical pieces and so forth. Now, I've got this running. I'm going to go back and launch another app, and to do that I'm going to go into my main window screen. And the way I get back to the main menu is I can click on the Windows key on the bottom here of the keyboard, and with there it brings it up. I'm going to go back to the weather app again. I also could have used the what looks like a logo, but it actually is a touch-sensitive Windows menu key. I press that, it brings me back to my main start menu. And let me launch a separate app. Now remember, we're talking about apps that are single-purpose, much like what you find on your phone. In this case here, I'm going to launch this app, and this is a news app, and off it goes, and it gives us the ability to once again flip through stories, and if we see something that's of interest, we can go ahead and click as we go through here. And usually the news isn't overly exciting or it's in pieces, but let's go ahead and we'll touch this one. And once I touch it, it loads up this like you might on your phone. You could then read the article, and then when you're through, you see up in the very top corner, we have a back button that will take us back into the full news. And then if we hit, once again, the main menu, we can touch either one of our Windows keys to get us back to our menu. So that's a way to be able to go in and out of the apps. Let's shift gears. We'll come back and talk more about programs which are more like your Microsoft Office and Outlook, but let's take a look at how we can actually interact with the screen with our touch. It's more than just touching the screen. We can navigate through because there's some new keystrokes that you wouldn't, or I should say touch strokes, that you may not have noticed just by looking and playing with your Surface. Let's talk about how we can actually switch between apps. Now, if you recall, we've got a weather app, we got a news app, and we've got our main start menu. I'm going to show you what happens when we drag from the left side of our screen. I'm going to actually start on the edge. It looks like there's just a black border, but that's very active. I'm going to start at the black border, hold down, and drag over. And when I drag over, it brought up the last app that I was showing. I can do that again. I'm going to put it up to the left side, hold it down, and drag it over, and up it brings it there. So I'm able to, for the most part, flip through the apps that are running here. Now, as I do this, you're going to see that I've actually launched my desktop at the same time. We'll talk about how the desktop is almost like just another app, but it's actually a bubble holding other items. But for the time being, what we're seeing is that if we pull from the left side, it lets us switch between the different pieces that are running. Let's talk about what happens if we pull from the top side. If we pull from the top side, this is going to give us a context-sensitive menu. I'm going to pull from the top, once again starting the black, and I pull it down a ways, and we're going to see that now we have the ability to change the configuration of the app that is showing. So this is the weather app. If I already wanted to, I could choose places, and I could add in some additional places if I wanted to configure this particular app here. And that was because I pulled down from the top. Oops, let's do that again. And just partially pull down a ways, and we see that I have some configuration components. Let's see what happens when we're in the news app. We'll switch over to the news app, starting on the left side, touching the edge of the screen, dragging it over. And now when I bring from the top side and bring this down, instead of showing me weather-related pieces, because I'm changing the configuration of the news app, it's letting me choose different kind of topics that if I want to, of pieces that I could choose from, or I could, if I wanted to, choose, if I pull down from the top, different sources and get my news from different locations. So you can see pulling from the top and left lets us be able to do different types of things in the touch enabled portion. Let's do one more thing. I'm going to go back to the main menu. We pulled from the left, from the top. Let's pull from the right. And we pull from the right, it's going to bring up a different set of menu choices. In this case here, the menu has some particular things that we can do to do some searches. It's another start button, which seems a waste of space, but it's still another start button there. We also have the ability to connect some devices, which we've already pre-configured here with the Metro Help Desk. And then to share like a news story out, it will let you choose what email program you want to send that news story out. But what we really care about at the moment is really just the settings. And that's the symbol that looks like a gear that says settings. And when I do that, it brings up some of our most common settings. And here in some of our most common settings, we have the ability to change the sound. I'm going to hit the sound, which is the little speaker. And you can see I can adjust the sound up and down. If you recall, we said we could, at the earlier session, we could also do that with the rocker switch on the side of our physical surface, but we can also do it with the touch pieces here. We can also change the brightness of the screen, of raising and lowering it. We have the ability, and we'll talk more about changing your keyboards. We have the ability to do different kinds of Wi-Fi connections. If I touch the Wi-Fi symbol and be able to connect, if there are other types of Wi-Fis in this location, I could choose those. I'm going to go ahead and get this back out, drag from the right, choose my settings, and you'll see we also have some notifications that will give us some updates from time to time. The other piece is the power button. They kind of hidden this. You found that the power button in your Windows 7 was hiding off on the left side of your screen. Now they've moved it to the settings here, and this was how you'd be able to go ahead and shut down the machine or put it to sleep. So with that, we've got a chance to actually see some of the ways of interacting with your start window. For the time being, let's call it quits, and in our next session, we'll see more about starting to launch the programs, which are going to be your Word and Excel, which you're going to spend most of your day in. So with that, that's it for now, and the Metro Help Desk will be back for the next session talking about how to launch programs and work with them. Thank you. We saw that we could get to the settings by pulling from the right side, and up pops the settings. But there's some other tricks and ways to be able to work with the configuration of your system that is very different from your previous version of Windows. While we could go into settings, and I saw we showed you could change your Wi-Fi by clicking on the Wi-Fi settings, I'm going to show you that you don't really care where any of the settings are. In the Start menu, nothing showing other than your tabs. It's actually waiting for you to issue a command to be able to execute or to be able to find information for you. So I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Wi-Fi at the keyboard. You'll see nothing showing. I'm just starting to type Wi-Fi, and what's happened is that it's automatically started showing me a variety of things that might be related to Wi-Fi. You'll see this popped up on the screen. So it says connect to a network or change Wi-Fi, and those all have that same little gear that we saw moments ago. So we're able to actually go in there, and I could choose connect to a network, and it pops me up to that same screen we saw a few moments ago. But what happens is I didn't have to remember where it was. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to type Wi-Fi one more time. And we'll see that in addition to the Wi-Fi settings, we found that there's actually several other things, such as the items at the bottom of the screen. If they're not programs, these are actually internet searches, so that if you were looking for a Wi-Fi analyzer or Wi-Fi antenna, you'd actually be able to go down there, and we do that, it's going to launch the internet and start searching for that particular piece. If there was a document that had been indexed on my computer that had something to do with Wi-Fi, it might even show the Word document or Excel document because it's a universal search. And all we did was we just started on the main menu and we started typing away. So if we want to know how to put this into airplane mode, we could just typing airplane, and sure enough, it pops up the settings. You no longer, like you would with the earlier versions of Microsoft Windows, have to learn where different settings were hiding in the control panel. Just go to the main menu, start typing what you're looking for, and it will find it for you, which is great. Let's talk about the keyboard real quickly before we leave this. We can see here that we actually have a few more shortcuts. We've already seen how we can adjust the sound. We can actually do it off the keyboard here to be able to do things. And you'll see that we have page up and page down. But we also have a curious little keys. It's going to be difficult to show in this film in a bright room, but the sun coming up and going down will actually help light up the keyboard. And so if you're in a dark room and you want to be able to see the keys, you could turn up the keyboard brightness and be able to start working on it there, which is very, very convenient. The other piece here is the trackpad, and this is a mouse that you can use to navigate through. This lets you just move through, and I'm going to move this down so we can see it in action. As I move this, we'll see up here the mouse moving around. And then if we want to do a right click or a left click, all you have to do is push down on the right side, which is a right click, or push on the left side, and that's the same as a left click. So it's sensitive to the clicks left and right, much like your mouse would be, but it's built into the keyboard itself. Great. Welcome back. Let's see a little more about the applications that are installed on your Microsoft Surface in Windows 8.1. Some of these are going to be familiar, but we're also going to introduce new versions of these friends, which is going to be having to do with Office 2013. However, Office 2013 works much more cleverly with your new Microsoft Surface. So I am back on the Start menu here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, within Surface here, you'll see that we have some main applications listed here. I could go ahead and just click Word to launch it there, but we saw earlier how we were able to find specific settings by just starting to type. And I'm going to find that if I start typing Word, W-O-R-D, all of a sudden Word 2013 shows up, and I can hit the Enter key, and off it goes, launching Word. Now, which is interesting is we've got the touch screen and all these fancy pieces, but sometimes using the keyboard might be the fastest way to get things up and running. I'm going to go ahead and start and open up a blank document here. It's actually Word version 2013, and this is something that we're upgrading all the agency to in the near future if we haven't already. When you come into it, it's very sensitive that you're working with the Microsoft Surface, and it's made some decisions about how to use the real estate on your screen. And this is why it looks a little different than what you may be used to. And then one, it is not showing the ribbon that you might be used to seeing. The ribbon was the ability for us to actually easily find the different commands. The reason why it's not being shown is it's trying to give you more workspace so that you can actually have more real estate to type your words or your Excel spreadsheet. But in the beginning, we highly recommend that you turn on the ribbon because it's going to make it much easier to interact with a new version of Office. And so by default, you need to come in, and in this case here, we're going to go to the top right-hand corner. I'm going to move the mouse up here, and we're going to hit this little box that has an arrow pointing upwards. It's called the ribbon display option. And when I click on that, it's going to give me several different choices of how I want Word to be displayed. I want to go down and have you change yours too to show tabs and commands. And when I do that, my ribbon now pops up. And you're going to find you just need to do this once, but once for every application. So when you go into Excel, turn on the show the ribbon. When you go into Outlook, tell it to show the ribbon. When you go into PowerPoint, show the ribbon. And once you have it on, you're going to find that it's now on the screen and you're going to be able to interact with it. And it'll help you get through an upgraded version of your Microsoft Office and, in this case, Word. Let's talk more about this. There's some more choices that we can customize to work within your environment. The last time we worked on the far right-hand side of the screen that changed the ability to show the tabs and the commands and the ribbons. I'm now going to have us go to the left side of the screen, and over here we're going to see that there's a little icon that shows the touch mouse. It's a finger touching your screen that lets you switch between touch mode and mouse mode. And when we do that, watch the size of the icons. When I click on that, I'm going to go from mouse to touch. You're going to see that it's now made them a larger size. That makes it simpler for me to do a bold, or if I want to do underlines or italics, it's a bigger size set of ribbons. I'm going to go back there and go back from touch to mouse, and we do that, you see it shrink, and it's a little more difficult to hit the B. I hit the I because I couldn't easily touch the screen because they're so small. The advantage here, though, is you now have a little more workspace, so you get to decide which way you wish. If you're using a mouse, you may find this very easy to work with that fashion. We're going to come back and talk about the use of the pen, because the pen is going to give you the ability to actually have a more precise ability to touch. In this case here, I could turn the italics off, and in that fashion. As you look, you'll see that as we get very, very close, the mouse is sort of following. It's got a battery in here that's letting it to interact with your screen without touching it, and then when you're ready, you click. But let's put this pen aside for a moment and talk more about ways to do input into your Surface. This is Microsoft Word, and you can go to the keyboard, and I could type the fox jumped over the sleeping dog. And it works just as you expect it to. There's no autocorrect. Well, there's the autocorrect, but there's no auto suggestion that you might find with your phones or your tablets, because you've got a keyboard, and this is Microsoft Word. So why wouldn't want to do those suggested words? Well, there is a reason for that. I'm going to move off the keyboard mode. I'm going to pull the keyboard off. I'm going to flip the kickstand back. And in this case here, I'm going to take this and flip it up on its side. And when I flip it up on my side, all of a sudden, we're going to find that we switched into a different mode. And so I can actually flip back and forth between portrait and landscape mode. Depending on what you're looking at, you may find that you like working in the portrait mode where your documents lay out in that fashion. It will automatically rotate for you. Let's go back and see about what happens when I took the keyboard off. And now, well, there's no keyboard to type. In fact, if I actually left my keyboard behind, I could be out of luck. No, I'm not actually. I'm going to click in here, and you can see automatically I now have a keyboard that has popped up for me to be able to work on. And here I can do a space. And now, oh, whoa, look at this. As I start to type, it wants to do some auto suggestions of words. I could actually click on food here, and it's actually writing the document for me. I'm not sure what it's doing. I could actually change this around to a new word, and it can see and maybe still do corrections and type. So I have the ability of working with the keyboard in this fashion here. So I have a soft keyboard, much like you might have on your computer, on your phones. But it has some extra tricks here. I can actually switch the keyboard, and you'll see on the very bottom corner, I've got a little keyboard mode, and I can switch from a full keyboard to a thumb keyboard. And now in this case here, I can start working like this by holding up much like you would on your phone. And then we can switch one more mode. I'm going to hit the return key, and I'm going to once again hit the screen to change the keyboard. And then I'm going to touch something that looks like a pen in a blank square. When I do that, I now have a writing area. And to be able to do this, I can try to type or write in here, and it may or may not recognize my word. And sure enough, it did, and I can insert it there. So you have the ability of using the pen to try to do inputs. I know a lot of people think that's going to be cool, and after a while, they realize it's actually easier to use the keyboard or even the on-screen, but you do have this. The pen does have other choices, though. Now let's close this, and I'm going to actually, when I have the pen going, we'll see that in our version of Office 2013, in this case Word recognizes that I have a pen nearby, and I actually can click on the pen tab, and it gives me some choices. So I can now annotate my document by just drawing on top of it. Now, if we were to send this to somebody else, they'd actually just see the drawings as if it was a picture on top, so they wouldn't be able to, unless they had their own pen, interact with it, but they'd actually see the contents layered on top of your Word document. I could do the eraser and erase things as they go along. So you have the ability of using the pen not just to touch and select things as we are now, or you could do it in writing mode. So there's lots of different capabilities of working with the pen. This pen is, as you'll see in our handout, it does have some expenses. It's about a $50 pen to replace. And if we were to open it up, we'll find that we have a quadruple A battery in there. But there are some apps that you might find that you're easier to do your annotations as you go along. So with that, let's put this down and actually close up Word by clicking on the X. And we're not going to save the document, and go back to our main menu. Great. Welcome back. Let's do our last segment that talks about a few housekeeping items, including where to save your files, which is very important, how also to get access to your network drives when you're out and about, and then shutting down your system when you're through and you're about to travel and you don't want to be wasting battery. Let's talk about where to save files. On your old PCs and your laptops, you may find that you might save them around different locations on your C drive, but we're recommending that you do not do that. In fact, we're insisting that you're going to want to save your files in a very specific location. I'm going to go back to my desktop. I'm going to bring up our file system here by clicking on the files down the bottom corner here, and it brings up our different files that are located on this machine here. What we're saying is that we want you to save your files in the Documents folder. It's very important that you save in the Documents folders, and don't save them on your desktop. Don't save them in some other location on the C drive. And the reason being is that in the Documents folder, we actually will back up the contents of that whenever you're back connected to the Metro network. Behind the scenes, whatever you've saved, whatever the updates are, it will update it to the network so you have a copy of it back here safely saved. If you put it on your desktop or on your C drive, and you were to lose your Surface or you were to break your Surface, you would not be able to get those files back. They could be lost completely. But by saving the documents, and the next time that you connect to the network is then going to sync them for you automatically. When you're in Word and Outlook, by default, that's where they want to go. So just go with the flow. Now, if you happen to be connected to the network off a network drive, Feel free to save those wherever you desire for your work group or your project group, but recognize that when they're saved on the network, they're not going to be on your local PC or your local service when you're out and about. So they stay on the network drives, but if you use the documents, they will follow you around. With that said, if you are traveling around, when you take your service and you power it off, or you go to another location and then come back on Metro property, you may find that you do not see the map network drives, your J drive, or your W drive, your T drive. It varies from group to group. But if they do not show up, we actually have a shortcut on the top corner of your desktop. And in there is called Connect to Network Drives. You can take your mouse and you can double click on it. I'm going to close this down for the time being, although you wouldn't have to. And when you double click on that, it's going to go out there and it's going to go ahead and run a command to be able to connect your system there. So that gives the ability to map your network drives back again. So once again, if you don't see your network drives, go ahead and just go to your desktop and double click on the connect to connect to your desktop and bring those drives again. When you're normally out and about and you're going to use your computer shortly afterwards, you can always just close it up like this. It goes to sleep, but it does not completely power down. It makes it so you can easily power it back up relatively quickly by just opening the screen, as we saw before, hitting the space bar or tapping at the very top and logging back in. Now, it's always going to ask you for your password, and the reason it does that is that if you were to put it down and look away, someone conceivably could walk away with your Surface and then they'd have access to all your files. So every time it closes for securing your files and the network files, we are going to ask for a password. Let me log back in on this one here. I'm going to hit the top button this time and log in. And I'm now back on my desktop so that we can see how easy it is to get back and forth. It is a relatively quick login because it's a fast computer. Now, if you're going to be away from this for several hours and you know that you are worried about battery life, you then do want to shut down. And there's several ways to shut down. We've seen several of them, but let me show you the last one that we looked at. I'm going to drag from the right side and we got to the settings buttons. Within the setting buttons, we can tap on that and we can see we have a power button. I'm about to tap the power button, but not close it down because I'm recording what's taking place. But let's go ahead and see. When I do that, it gives me the ability to restart the machine, shut down, or sleep. So that when you do the shutdown, that means the computer's completely off, not going through any battery. So if you happen to be traveling for several hours and you really want to save your battery life, shut it down and then log back in again when you're done. With that, we've walked through some of the key parts of your new Surface, your new version of Windows 8.1, and also a few things about Office 2013 and how it interacts with your new Surface. If you have other questions, do take some time and look through the handout that we provided to you. You'll see that there is a table of contents with details to help you find items. And if you get stuck, there's always the Metro Help Desk. So feel free to give them a call or send them an email and they'll help you get going on your Surface. We do believe that you're going to have a few weeks just to get used to it. But once you get used to it, you're going to love the ability to pick everything up and take it with you. And you're going to wonder how you lived and worked without this. With this, enjoy your new Surface and your new Office and your new Windows 8.1. And thank you for paying attention from the Help Desk at Metro. Bye.